If you can hit yes to that, I think you need to hit yes. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Resourceful Therapist. I've got another exciting episode, and I'm super excited because we have some fabulous guests here of the Imago therapy community. I have Will Vorobioff, I'm probably pronounced that incorrect, Vorobioff, sorry, and Julie Cutler. They are amazing Imago's couple therapists who are presenting the Getting the Love You Want workshop, and they are, Will is a psychologist by background, and Julie is a very experienced couple psychotherapist and counsellor, has worked many years in this industry. So there's a lot of, so welcome Julie and Will, lovely to have you along.
Thanks, Philipa.
Thank you, Philipa.
Truly, truly. So, and I, as you guys know, I'm Imago's couples therapy too. There's a reason why we're Imago's couples therapists. Isn't that right, Julie and Will? So perhaps if I start with you, Will, what sort of led you, often I imagine you're a psychologist by trade, what kind of led you into the industry? What was it?
A messy life, really.
I bet, honestly.
What are our neurotic reasons for being in our professions? And there was an interest in my own process, my own psychology. I did have, in fact, I had a brother who committed suicide, and that really also, kind of touched me on such a deep level. And I was interested, intrigued in exploring more and understanding more of the human condition.
Oh, I'm really touched to hear that, actually. Yeah. So, and I'm sorry for your loss of your brother. So, how old were you when you decided to enter the profession then?
At that stage, I mean, it was a bit of a slow process for me. I was involved in the whole personal growth movement but I was at that stage into my early 30s, or late 20s, early 30s, and a deep need for more self-awareness and my own growth and development. And it kind of started then. And it was actually later that I went and did a psych degree to try and see what academia had to say about this, the human condition. And it says some useful things along the way. Yeah,
I'll bet. And that's certainly a significant influence with the loss of a loved one like your brother. Yes, I think there's these catalysts that happen in our lives, aren't they, that sort of perhaps turn us in a corner that we may not have.
Kind of forks in the road. Yeah, forks in the road where you make choices. And whether we're being led in that direction or but for reasons often seemingly unknown, we end up doing what we're doing, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Oh, yeah. Thank goodness. And we're still in this country worldwide, there's an epidemic of suicide we're not addressing for young and men in the middle age as well. Thanks, Will. And Julie, what about yourself? What was your journey into entering into this profession? What opened the doors? What doors closed? Who knows? It's very interesting.
I've always been interested in, or curious actually, about people's lives and people in general, and my own life. But yeah, it's just a bit of a fascination to know why people are the way they are and what makes us tick. And I think that started my journey off. And I didn't actually think of anything to do with becoming a couples therapist. I just thought I'd stay away from that altogether. Coming from a background where there was a lot of conflict in my growing up years. And so that sort of scared me. I didn't even think of that would be the way I would focus. I just thought I'd be a general counsellor. But as it turned out, I became more curious, and because we had that conflict in my growing up years, I thought I just really need to find a way that I can understand myself, first of all, and then teach others how to address conflict, because it is a normal part of our lives. And, there's got to be a better way instead of getting into these stuck places like many of us do. So it was a curiosity, and it was something I did later in life. I was in my 50s when I decided to go and study to be a therapist, and it's the best journey I've ever been on, and still just just love learning as much as I can and helping people. And I guess that's the other thing. I've always loved to be able to help people in some way. So this is the door that's opened for me.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Julie. I'm really touched again hearing that as well. And I think people hearing this will be very inspired that in your 50s, sorry, that's a message, you had a career change and doors opened. And I think that's not unusual to hear people come into the generalist counselling and then decide, hang on, that's not quite enough. And also to try and address some of what did or didn't happen from our past, true bravery, and then stepping into the couples therapy. Because do you guys find that? I find that, like, oh, couples therapy is like, no.
I did. I used to, yes. I used to have fear and trembling thinking of a couple coming, and would hardly sleep the night before and trying to work out in my own head what I would do to help them instead of just thinking I've just got to be in the present moment and see what shows up. So, yeah, that was a big learning curve for me.
Oh, that's yeah, not alone there. I'm sure. Anxiety, and a lot of people aren't even brave enough to have more than one person in the room.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I was a bit that way because I worked with a big national organisation for a while, over 25 years ago now, and it was working with couples, and I did family and couple therapy training, and I worked with couples for a while, but it was such a war zone, and the models I had, I never really felt confident about working with couples. And although some of my work might have been okay, it was something that I moved away from and moved into work with individuals. So it's been a real return to working with couples, which is kind of new, which is largely driven by my own need, the struggles in my own relationships, trying to find something that worked. And as we were talking about before, it's funny that things that lead you in the directions that you are. And so it was when an old friend of mine knew I was struggling with relationship and sent me some material on Imago, and I went, oh, this looks interesting. And so I pursued that and did some clinical work in it, and then we did some couples counselling in the Imago model, and it proved to be a great tool for unfolding some of the dramas and some of the dilemmas in our own relationship, and to lead to a much more a more peaceful life and more loving life, more loving relationship.
Oh, fantastic. And that's what we're all pretty much yearning for in a couple, isn't it? I love that you've done the full circuit. You started off with the different models, but connecting with Imago sounds like you went down a journey, having experienced professionally and personally. I do find that, don't you, Julie, that that's sort of a journey often as a couples therapist and a person in a relationship is not uncommon. I find there's that. What about your journey? Thank you, Will. And your journey, Julie, into
Imago. Yeah, I'd used some other models in the past, and really I was just flying by the seat of my pants, and really not feeling as confident as I would have liked to. And I thought to myself, there's got to be something out there better, that another model that I can use where I can feel much more confident. And I actually did an online search and came across Imago that way, and contacted some people in Sydney who put me on the right path, and it started from there. And from the time I saw this model in action and heard about it and read about it, I just felt like a whole load get lifted off my shoulders, because it just felt such a safe process that I could feel comfortable in leading people through the process, but also giving them the tools, giving the couples the tools that they could use, that they could go home and use this themselves and not have to depend on me or other therapists after a period of time. So that's how I came across Imago, and it's only really been, I think it was 2014. I did some training, but I have used it ever since, pretty much. And I just find that it's such a wonderful model, not only because it's safe, but we actually get to work towards the things that are really underneath that sometimes don't come to the surface when we're working with people, the things that keep people stuck, and the things underneath the triggers that really give us so much more understanding and empathy for each other. So yeah, that's basically how I came across Imago.
That's fantastic, Julie, and we're lovely to hear that journey into Imago. And I'll kind of, it does, isn't it? But I think maybe there'll be some people out there who have never heard of Imago couples therapy. Perhaps we need to tell them what it is, and I'll hand it over to you guys as the experts. Yeah. What is Imago couples therapy for those who might never have heard about it? You've probably each got a wonderful and unique description. And
I wish.
You wish?
I mean, what I could say about it is Imago is just Latin for image, and the idea that when we're growing up, we absorb, of course, all the information in the environment and from our parents, and we watch our parents relating and how they relate to us and how they relate to others, and we learn to relate accordingly, and we have this image in our minds of what love means based on those images, and that's where the notion of Imago comes from. And then following on from that is the idea that later in life, when we're looking to partner, we look around, and the people that we're most attracted to are those who are most familiar. So that means people who fit some of that model that we've experienced in early years. And of course, there is that kind of almost cartoon character of you're attractive and you're going to marry your parents. Well, there's actually an element of truth in that. Because you've got to work out your childhood, your childhood issues, because certainly in Imago takes the position, I guess, that we're pretty wounded. We all get wounded in childhood, and we have to adapt and we grow, and that in those wounded places, or those challenged places, if you like, we have to meet those in our development as we grow. And one of the most powerful things to do is to find somebody who's similar to our early caretakers, so that we can work out some of those early issues.
Yeah, so those fights are there for a reason.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we can heal sort of from our early hurts, if you like, isn't it? And we will choose someone that is la familiar and familiar, and even or the opposite of, sometimes in a reflexive way, isn't it? But we're drawn to that almost as a pattern repeats, so that we can, with, I don't know, from moving to an individual to a couples therapist, there's no more growth than being in your relationship, because your partner is going to really promote it by pushing your buttons.
That's right.
That active does. Julie,
there's a wonderful saying that to the extent that we are triggered is to the extent that we are not free.
That is it, isn't it? Yeah, when you don't have that reaction, it means you can be truly in that present moment and with compassion and empathy, because I think that's a key, isn't it? I heard you say earlier, Julia, of Imago as well. Across from you, who's having their thing, they're experiencing something. It's heartful therapy, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So when we're able to see what's underneath those triggers for each other, the pain that we're brought from the past, or the challenges we're brought from the past, it hopefully gives us more understanding and empathy of why we are the way we are, and why our partner is the way they are, and that can be very insightful. And so the other thing I like about Imago, of course, is the fact that we coach people into speaking one at a time and to listening one at a time, because most of us don't know how to listen very well, and we make things up in our head about what we think the other person's thinking or about to say or feeling, and we don't always really ask them. So the model just helps slow things down, so that we can really be present for each other, that we can learn to speak one at a time, learn to listen one at a time, and as a therapist, we take it deeper to find out what's underneath those triggers, so that you know, as I said, they can have some empathy for each other, but to know how to be in a different way that can change the whole system that they've created that hasn't been healthy in the first place. So it's empowering, and it's transformative, and I think it's a model that just really demonstrates that transformation when people commit to it and put the work in.
And it's not so much, I love that you were saying that too, Julie, the practicality of it. It teaches skills. You're not going to have to keep continuously coming to a therapist. You're going to learn a very structured way, a script. You're actually given a script, guys. It's that easy that you'll be able to take away and apply. But with the therapist in the room, or the Getting the Love You Want for workshop, for instance, you will learn, hang on, it's not me that's really pushing their button. It's what did or didn't happen for this, my partner.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, we certainly bring our past into our adult lives, and it gets in the way of being able to effectively be able to work through a lot of these upsets that come, you know. So understanding our past, understanding why we are the way we are, and then being able to find some healing from that as well. Can actually put us in a good foundation to do the rest of the work. Absolutely. And as you know, in a couple relationship, that is a perfect place, a vehicle, if you like, I think, because every one of us will have early experiences where our needs were not connected with or met in ways that we needed. And it's not about parent blaming, but it's just about doing that. So when we're having these emotional reactions with our partner, that's a younger part of us, for sure. It's not an adult part. That's always a good clue. I've been triggered. And I love, with going back to some of the process that we do, it is very, there's a speaker and a listener role. Like you're saying, we're not actually taught very well. And those different roles are really useful to create a depth of understanding that I find when I'm sharing, I'm like almost learning about myself as I'm sharing, because I don't have any feedback coming at me. And my husband, Chris, God, you love me. He said to me, or I might have said it to his client, I can't remember, but I'm using it, but I'll cite him. He's a psychologist. He said, you know, when I'm receiving, I've crossed over into Philipa's world, so I can't think of my stuff. And there's such a relief in doing that in the listening, receiving role. But he knows when he's crossed back in, because that's when the chatter comes and it's not present. Yeah. And it is, you know, the work of Brene Brown and everything. It's the power of presence. It's the power of vulnerability, isn't it? Very much so. Yeah. Saying safety, that's what you mean. The ability to go, oh, here's the anger, but underneath the anger is the heart. Yeah. And that's probably where we love it. And just before we move on to the Getting the Love You Want workshop, because we want to hear all about that, that's a very special weekend retreat, especially as we're in lockdown here. This is no better time. But I just, as you've transferred your skills and abilities throughout your life, your early careers, individual therapist, family therapist, couples therapist now, and Imago's couples therapist, I always ask this of my guests, is what skills and abilities do you think a couples therapist needs? Would you like to go, Will? He looks contemplative.
What's been helpful for me is certainly is the experience of struggle in my relationship. Right. And then finding the skills to navigate that. And I think that rather than being, you know, an all-knowing therapist in that kind of top-down position, it's a sense of I've walked this road, and I know how challenging that it can be. And that there's something about that, about bringing that kind of realness to it, and that genuineness to it, and also a belief that this is a model that can give you the skills that you need if you're prepared to work with it. And so as far as the skills I bring, I mean, some life skills, I hope, but a capacity to listen, because I think that we really need to model that to our couples, how they might listen to each other. And in order to feel, because the biggest part, or one of the biggest parts of any therapy, is creating a sense of safety in the room. And when you've got two people come in, sometimes in a war zone, in their own war zone, or sometimes after decades of disconnection, they're not going to open up and start engaging with me or with each other until there's a sense of safety. And I think that for me to help provide some level of safety for both of them, so they can both start to relax, both start to let down their defenses, so that they can then start to hear each other, is probably my first sense of what's needed.
I love to hear, I'll just mirror that because that's one of the key skills a little bit, but just to paraphrase a bit more, was like lived experience of your own personal struggles within your relationships has fired your curiosity, and that struggle in a sense has led you to be more authentic with yourself and your partnership, and therefore it transfers into the room, keeping curious and holding a sense of emotional safety and really deep listening, just as a snapshot of what you said, Will. Thank you. The structure. Julie, what do you think for a couples therapist? And it doesn't have to be you, just a couples therapist.
Certainly, I agree with what Will just said about the safety. And Havel Hendricks talks about the space between two people. It needs to be a safe space or a sacred space where we're more conscious about what we are inputting into that space in our language, in our communication, in our expression, in every way that we can be a safe partner to keep this space in a way that both people feel they can be vulnerable, that they can be open, that they can share their heart in a way that, they won't feel put down or criticized or whatever, but that they can be genuine with what's going on in them and what their needs are and what they're feeling, and that they can really hear each other. So as a therapist, to be able to provide that safety is utmost important. And certainly to be able to hold both people in that process and not appear as though you're taking sides, because we're not taking sides, because we all do the best we can, but we're human, we're not perfect, and we struggle with those triggers. And so for me to just really have a balance there in being able to support both people in a way that they both feel safe and that they're both being held in a way is so important. And to really be able to hear them, because lots of times people come and they say, I never get heard, usually both people say that, we never get heard, or I haven't got a voice. So it's important that we give each person the equal opportunity to be heard, to be understood, to hear what's going on and what they're needing. So yeah, some of those areas are very important as a therapist, a couples therapist.
What fabulous answers, guys. I'll just mirror a bit of that. So you're saying, relating to Havel Hendricks' idea of the space between us, it's an invisible, but it's like creating an openness, a field of authenticity and genuineness, where a therapist is there to guide as a gentle, holding, safe pair of invisible hands, as a coach, to create that consciousness of the relationship that we've all been through stuff. And keeping it also with Imago too, I heard you saying it's very even. And most of us are yearning because we don't feel like we've been able to ever be really heard or listened to and really connected with and Imago in that space in your therapy rooms, and therefore later on the tools that you can take away out of them right into the real world. That's wonderful. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
And it is. It's a heartfelt therapy. It's not, as Will was saying, it's not a top down. It's sort of more a bottom up. It's this and this together.
Very much. Yeah.
And yes, fantastic. And so I'm very excited because, you know, of the pandemic. I'm not excited about that, but I'm excited because in a sense, we're super lucky here. Will and Julie. Julie's a certified Imago presenter. So not only are they both certified Imago couples therapists, but a certified presenter. You've done a lot of extra work to do that, haven't you, Julie? That takes a lot as to run the Getting the Love workshop. And of course, that means Will's a wonderful educator in this process. The beautiful thing about every Imago couples therapist, we've all done the workshop as a couple. Even if you can't do it in perhaps in a husband-wife or partner relationship, you can do it with a friend. But every one of us has been to this workshop. Actually, I've got a thing. And because of the way the world is in our lockdowns, we can now go online. And you've just recently run a very successful course and helped many couples come to a new understanding. And just a 2 and a bit day retreat, which, here it is, let me see. The Getting here, and this is actually my one from the workshop. And it's like
very recognizable. Yeah.
You get this, and a lot of the exercises you will have completed, which I like, because if you're anything like me, I don't actually do them when I get home. Will and Julie will help you and your relationship and guide you successfully to a new level of connection, comprehension, and, oh, dare I say it, love and fun, isn't it?
Yes.
September, it's coming up online. So guys, can you tell us what is the Getting the Love You Want workshop all about? What are people going to get? And perhaps what couples, what they might be, some of their fears, because it's, you know, you imagine coming to a workshop, what I also get this asked, you know, oh, will it be us and we're having to work as a group, things like that. People are afraid of that. Can you answer some of the common questions, and will give us an intro onto the beautiful Getting the Love You Want, Julie and Will?
So the great thing about the workshop is that we provide a lot of material. They do a lot of the dialogues. They practice the dialogues. They get a lot of information that perhaps they may not hear in a couples therapy session. And they get a lot of information, and they get a lot of opportunity to do the work in the workshop that would normally take a matter of months to do if they're coming for, you know, therapy sessions. Not to say the workshop's the be all and the end all, but we see it as an adjunct to therapy work. And that just gives people so much more understanding in a short space of time that normally would take a lot longer to take on board. But I guess the other thing that stands out for me is that when people come and they observe other couples and perhaps hear of some of their situations, it helps them to feel not that, you know, they're alone and they're the only ones that struggle with these situations, but that they're very common frustrations that we all experience in relationships, and helps them not feel obviously so alone. But look, the workshop's broken up into some teaching, some practicing the dialogues. There's some fun things throughout, you know, to break up you know, we're not sitting down the whole time. We're getting up, having some stretches, having some refreshment breaks, things like that. But what else?
I'm sorry, you'll have to provide your own because it's online.
Yeah.
And when you're saying the dialogues, people might not understand what that is, but there's quite a few dialogues that you're going to be teaching that, isn't it? And
demonstrating how to have a safe and effective conversation with each other in a dialogue form, where they're able to get to know each other more, find that closer connection with each other and that understanding, that empathy. And so, you know, even though sometimes we see people come with a little hope or, you know, don't even know whether it's going to work, or maybe even have separated and are going to give it one more go, you know. Pretty much every workshop we've run so far, people go away with new hope and a new connection, a different connection, certainly a much more closer, more intimate connection. So that's the reward that we see every time we run a workshop, is that no matter what they come with, they go out with some hope and feeling so much more confident that they've got a new journey in life that's going to be much more fulfilling and happier and loving than what they've experienced.
I love that, Julie. I was thinking the word that I had in my mind was rewarding, and so inspiring too, to see couples come in and that probably places of despair to hopelessness to hopefulness.
Yes.
In that. I think it's also important to say too that the workshop's not just for couples who are in despair. Although a lot of couples come and some of them can be on the verge of separation, a lot of couples have come because their relationship's gone a bit stale, or for some they've been in a poor relationship before and they haven't had the skills, and they're entering a new relationship and they're in love and they want to make sure they can stay that way. And although inevitably we move out of the romantic love phase and often into the power struggle, to have the skills to navigate that is what the workshop very much supplies. And you can learn these skills even if you get the Getting the Love You Want workbook, which I don't have one at hand. You might, Philipa.
I do.
Yeah, that's the manual for the workshop. But the original book, the Getting the Love You Want, also has the exercises in it. And there is another workbook that they put out, which is the workbook for Imago therapy. And if you can work on your own and you want to, and that's the way people have often come to Imago, they've come across it, or, you know, there's whatever organization they're a part of has shown them. And there's a lot of stuff on the web now that people can check out. That the exercises and most of the exercises from the workshop are in there. It's just that when people come to a workshop, and there's nearly always one person who's keen and another person who is much less keen and certainly worried about confidentiality or feeling exposed, because you almost inevitably in couples have one person who's more out there and upfront, the other person is a bit more reserved, what we call maximizers and minimizers. And so you get one person who's keen to come and the other person is really kind of has more fear about it. And when they can really overcome that, and they're likely to get in some ways more out of it than we say more out of it than the person who's dragged them along, because the person who's dragged them along often think it's a problem with their partner, rather than actually this is a dance. And it means that both people have things to learn about themselves and about each other. And the skills that they can learn in a workshop, which is kind of different from trying to do it yourself. I know that at times I want my partner to read something because only she would read this, she'd understand it, and our lives would be a lot simpler. But to have somebody else kind of, yes, blame is a very useful tool for us to give our own responsibility up. And so in a workshop, you're working together and most of the work is done between you. So the people do have a bit of a fear of exposing, putting their dirty laundry out in public, in a sense of that. Nobody has to do that. It's about the work you do between yourselves as you share and use these tools. And it's very much easier to learn it in a live working environment or in this case, a virtual environment, which has worked extraordinarily well, I've got to say. I was reluctant initially to go online, but I found it, and couples have found it actually to be very fantastic to do within the comfort, safety of their own home, and it's less cost often rather than travelling to Newcastle or wherever to be able to do this. Just as many of us have found the online work and the online training in all sorts of modalities very powerful. And this is exciting work. It's rocket fuel for a relationship. And yeah, if anybody is considering it, they can certainly feel free to get in touch. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Don't hesitate. Yeah, it's so amazing, because I remember, Chris and I went along. I was the dragger. He wasn't so keen. He just came along. I didn't know what to expect. And this was in the days when there was 30 other couples with us in a big room, and the facilitators. And I remember thinking, oh no. And, Chris is not the person. I'd be like, oh yeah, let's go up and do a demonstration. You don't have to do anything. And all the work really was encapsulated with us as the couple. And that was interesting to me, even though we're in the big group, all the work we do, because a lot of people are worried like, oh, well, we have to work with other couples. No, you do not have to work with other couples. You're only working with your spouse or your partner, your friend, whoever you bring along, because it can be useful in that aspect. But you also, there are braver people who will possibly volunteer and have a wonderful opportunity to get what would be several $100s worth of therapy happening to help other couples see what it looks like in action. And that's really powerful, because that's the model really, isn't it? You talk about it, you see it in action, and then you do it. So that's how we learn. And then you practice it again. You've got this book, which I still use. It's literally always beside me in my office, and Chris and I still use it. And it's like anything, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And I can imagine that even eventually, I'm just talking here, that once you get some more couples that have been through online, you might even do an follow-ups every 6 weeks or something like that, to just help people reconnect ideas or something. And there are many, as Julie and Will were saying about the dialogues, there's many dialogues. The central one is the couples dialogue, where we learn to mirror, validate, and empathize. Key skills. Corporate world know this, but I even say that to my people. This stuff is going to help improve not only your relationship, your partnership, but you'll possibly see, and I've had this, I don't know about you guys too, the couples come in and say, oh, my children, they're noticing. They say, Mum, Dad, what's happening? I'm noticing you talking differently. This is really good. Glad you're not fighting anymore. They didn't realize how much their children, of course, were seeing and knew what was going on, but the children were very much appreciating Mum and Dad modeling some new communication skills.
And that's something. That's something that we say that it's what happens between a couple, which is the playground of the children.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And when that is safe in the middle between you, that's what kids need. They need the safety and security. And it's one reason why I'm doing this work, actually. It's because having grown up a bit like Julie in a family that where it wasn't easy, the space in between, and we had to learn to kind of navigate that, I guess, contaminated space, contaminated by parents' distress and by their own inability to communicate well. That if you can keep that as safe as possible, and you learn to keep it, I do say, and Julie used the word before, kind of a sacred space. It's such a profound and special place that is the playground of your children. And when you keep that clear, the kids are much more likely to be able to thrive and to flourish and to do the kind of growing that we all need to do, kind of unencumbered by having to navigate a war zone at a young age.
So freeing, isn't it? And every parent, I believe, really in their heart of hearts wants to improve on the parenting that they got and also pass down better skills to their children. And what better way to do it than modeling, because we know children are sponges in their environments. A monkey see, monkey do. So if a monkey is seeing really nice and respectful, that's going to help them and who they choose as a partner, by the way, and how they'll be interacting and how they will be also expecting in return to also, if they're being respected, they will be respecting. It's a two-way street, as you're saying, that playground, and it is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, and it's wonderful as well for parents to be able to mirror their children, mirror them into existence. They feel heard, if they feel wanted and needed, makes a whole lot of difference.
Yep, and validated, because often back in the days, we don't know so much back then, and the generations where we had parents, and those parents, and they were often coming out of their own sort of trauma, but yeah, people were told, not to have feelings, you weren't allowed, there was only a certain aspects of yourself that were safe and available. But here you can have your thoughts and emotions and energies. Doesn't mean you have to act them out, but the whole scope of the personality. And I think that's what probably is the heart of it, Imago too, is unconditional love and acceptance. And it really fosters that in a two-way street, as you're saying, in that infinity loop between them.
I think that's a high bar, though, unconditional love.
Oh, of course, we slip it all the time. But you can
kind of what we want, particularly we want the unconditional love from the other, but we're a little bit more reluctant to give it ourselves. And I think that's a great challenge to for both parties to learn what mature and conscious love means, because we do talk about this whole process as being moving from an unconscious relationship to a conscious relationship, and that requires work, it requires effort, but until we become more conscious, we're flying blind.
And awareness is the key, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a great starting point, because as the blinkers come off, and I remember actually going back to when I went along, I've got to say I was a bit of a smarty pants. I thought, I've done a therapy and I've done a lot of personal development. My husband, Chris, isn't, just because he's a psychologist. I've got to say, I just sort of shut my mouth, go, I'm learning a lot here, and I'm also learning a lot about myself and him in a way that I, made it, I won't say safer, but more comfortable for him to share more of himself with me, because that's the dynamic of our relationship. And it gave me such compassion and more towards that unconditional love, like you're saying, it's a very high ideal, and gratitude and respect. I admire my husband because it's such a so it deepens that if you've got that. And going back to what you were saying too, thank you, Will, about you don't have to be in the depths of despair to get there. This can be I noticed that young couples are coming in like, communication's not as great as it could be. We want it to be better. That's the time to come in and do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Do you find that younger people are a lot more tuned in and tuned up and like, we're just going to address this because it's not working so well. And so I find emotionally intelligent. Have you noticed that in some of 2030s couples I've seen? I think the younger ones are more open to want to learn, to want to grow. And the other thing I really love about Imago is that we talk about the fact that our unconscious mind wants us not only to heal from the challenges of the past, but to grow into all our fullness. And so there is opportunity to do that, because we come from childhoods where certain things weren't modeled to us, or we didn't have the opportunity to stretch and grow those things.
And we can, if we want to, we can become more an affectionate partner, or we can become a better listener, or we can become better at expressing ourselves, whatever it is. It doesn't mean to say that we've got to stay the way we are. We can grow that thing so that we can feel more whole and be able to give our partner what they need as well in the process. So that's just another wonderful ingredient of the work of Imago.
Fantastic, like an evolving, growing relationship. We water
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
on it, and we talk to it and we encourage it, and it grows and blooms.
yeah.
That is really good.
Mm.
And yeah, I know. I was just thinking, the young people though, they are so much more ready to, that rather than wait, because this is a lot of the research, isn't it? People come in when they should have come in like 6 years early. But young people, I find, are like, oh, let's work through this. So we know we can. There's more. They're just so a lot more excited and energized. And if you come in earlier, that's always going to be less time in therapy. It's a bit like a wound, isn't it? That's festered. If you get in, clean it up, it'll heal a lot faster.
That's right.
Need antibiotics and possible hospitalization. I'm not that.
There is something about the need for, inevitably, all relationships seem to go through this process of romantic love, and the illusions of the other, that feels so fantastic. It's like, I had to live in that, but if we lived in that, we'd never actually grow.
You couldn't do anything either in that phase of the relationship. You're like goo-goo with love.
Yeah. And then, I mean, who needs therapy then? So, that's often not when people want to come in and do these kind of workshops. But the difference is, because I think throughout, certainly I've seen it in my parents and amongst friends and throughout my growing life, my own relationships, that we never knew what the option was. We never knew that there were places to go. Yes, you could find a therapist, and I'd found a few of those in my life, and you do a bit of work and that feels good. But the notion that there might be a model or a system that would make sense, that if you and has the skills, and if you learn those skills, you can take them away, and they're going to affect all your relationships, as we've been saying, the relationship with your partner, with your parents, with your kids, with your workmates,
with yourself,
absolutely with yourself. That you've still got to do the work. And sometimes people come in, and often actually will come in and they'll do 1 or 2 sessions and they'll feel a bit better and they'll go away, and then won't return to therapy for years, because we're reluctant to, sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's about exposure. And I think that young people also often struggle with that, and they often don't have the resources for this, many of them, for this kind of work. But it's much more accessible these days than it's ever been. And particularly now, as we're running some online, we also do face-to-face workshops, that people have such an opportunity to be able to do this and to find something new and really get really excited about a whole new way of seeing things. And I think we've called it, Imago's called it, a new way to love.
A new way to love. Perhaps on that note, if there's any parting words that you guys have, we might leave on a new way to love, that I will put in the text box below some links to the workshop, so you can click on that. Please write any comments. Perhaps you've experienced Imago couple therapy. Love to hear your experiences in the text box. Please like and subscribe to the Resourceful Therapy channel. There's, of course, the website. I'll put that link as well, where you can also find an Imago's couple therapy, and you can find Julie and Will's link to the Getting the Love You Want, a new way to love. I love it. So thank you, Will. Thank you, Julie. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just thank you, Philipa, for being such a great interviewer, and helped allay my anxiety about showing up and doing this. and you've made it very easy. So thank you.
You will.
Yeah, thank you too, Philipa. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and yes, you do an awesome job.
Oh, thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it too, and I hope people listening too are inspired and encouraged. Yeah, relationships, that's where it's all at. So I'll just stop recording. Thank you, guys.